Hey, Al McCoy here, and you are listening to the Solar Panel, the Phoenix Suns Show.
Appreciate you watching the Solar Panel podcast here on YouTube. If you do want to subscribe to the audio version, you can always do so wherever you listen to your podcast at. My name is Tim Tompkins. On the show, we have Dave King and Mr. Greg Esposito. So
I'm Dave.
I'm Greg. For those of you listening on the podcast, on the audio version, we're pointing at ourselves right now.
And that's Tim.
And for those of you that have gone ahead and listened to the audio version after you have done this podcast right here, you would know that I always take the intro out. Now I feel like you guys don't even listen to the final product anymore.
What show is this? This is Fanning the Flames, right? No?
Those guys are so nice.
Those guys are great. They don't deserve to be 7th on the rankings by one fan on Twitter that is suddenly now the definitive list.
Well, but now there's an 8th podcast, so they're not last right now.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something every day. I don't know. Yeah, there's a
or something.
Suns podcast.
Huh?
Suns every day or something. I don't know. I can't keep track of
Is
this.
it every other day or something?
Suns
Daily Suns every other day.
We're changing our name to Suns Once a Week, and you all can just find us under that on wherever you listen to your fine podcasts.
It really is a testament to the fan base that you have so many different Suns podcasts for a team that has been so terrible. And somebody, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the guys that does the podcast. I think, anyway, he said there are almost as many Suns podcasts as there are Suns wins.
Oh, the biggest problem right now is every Suns fan has a podcast, so we have no listener base because they're all just doing their own podcasts. So,
No, but we're all listening to each other, though. We are our own fan base.
Hold on, you guys listen to other shows? I barely have time to do this one, let alone listen to other shows.
I listen to the other ones. I do, and I even listen to this one, Tim.
So I would legitimately, I would listen to all of them every single day.
Love that Dave King
Spotify, but sometimes some of the other podcasts aren't on Spotify. Anyway, this podcast isn't about the other podcasts. This is about us and the Phoenix Suns. So listen,
Tim already does a good job pimping the other podcasts.
Tim, just cut that portion out.
I'm not doing any video editing. Okay. Reports that Porzingis, there are reports that the Porzingis for Josh Jackson swap a couple of years ago that the Knicks supposedly turned down is inaccurate, but apparently Mr. Greg Esposito has some inside information of what actually happened.
Yeah, I can confirm that Woj's report was wrong when he said the Suns turned down a trade that only involved the number 4 pick for Kristaps Porzingis. The Suns, in fact, were involved in 2017 around draft time in talks for Kristaps, but Phil Jackson wanted Devin Booker and the number 4 pick that would turn into Josh Jackson. Suns pretty much laughed and walked away from the table. So there was no truth to what Woj was saying on his podcast that they turned down a deal that only involved the number 4 pick. It's my understanding that if that had been the case, Kristaps Porzingis would have been a Phoenix Sun back then, long before his ACL injury.
Well, of course, like when it came out, I was texting with my Brightside staff, and I'm like, this makes 0 sense. And they were arguing with me. Well, it's because blah, blah, blah. Woj said it. And I'm like, just because Woj said it doesn't mean it was 100% all the facts. And now it comes out that it wasn't 100% all the facts.
No, and I mean, I think Gambo had a report about what the Suns actually offered in a different package, and I can just tell you, the Knicks counter to that was Booker and the number 4, and it was never even considered. So I don't know. A lot of things come into play. There's a lot of different sources that you could get this from. I don't know where Woj was getting it from. Maybe he misremembered, which could happen.
Yeah, because even Woj tweeted back then that it was more than just Josh Jackson in the middle of the melee.
Yeah, and I mean it's easy in these podcasts to say something off the cuff and misspeak or misremember. It's different when it's in written. So
Tell me, going back on it, going back on a lot of trades, hindsight is 2020, and you can tell yourself, oh, they really should have done that, like the rumored Kyrie, right? Kyrie for Josh Jackson. Should the Suns have done Porzingis?
No.
For Booker and number 4?
No, because then you'd be sitting with the same problem you have. One young star and
demanding a trade.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have.
Well, he'd be hurt, and he'd be demanding a trade because he's one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have. That would have been shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. The only way you made that deal is if you could have paired him with Devin Booker, and that was never on the table as a viable option. So no, I wouldn't have done that. And then, you know what frustrates me more though is fast forward 2 years, and the Suns couldn't get in on this deal with New York because they didn't have the expiring contracts. But they didn't have the expiring contracts because they released. They released Tyson Chandler. They released Austin Rivers, and they had traded the one expiring contract that they had in Trevor Ariza that was a big number for Austin Rivers and the right to cut him. So, like, it's the inexperience in the front office that winds up biting them in the ass again, because you could have been a player in this, and all you would have to done is take a bad contract back and gotten a young player in Kristaps that would have been the perfect kind of guy to bring in the situation. People are like, well, the knee injury. Yeah, but if you're only getting rid of expiring contracts of guys you weren't going to keep, it's worth rolling the dice, because then you could have another 23-year-old star if he bounces back. Instead,
there's really no downside for Dallas on that trade.
And Dallas winds up putting themselves in a hell of a position now where their rebuild gets accelerated, and the Suns are sitting here on their hands, I
mean, Dallas had to take on a bunch of bad money through next year. They're going to end up having to max out a guy that, likely isn't going to play before they give him that max extension. And if that contract, if he doesn't ever come back, if he has more knee problems, lower body problems on big guys is often a lot more serious than on guards. There's a bit of risk for Dallas. It'll probably work out, but there is definitely a bit of risk for Dallas. It's strange too, what the Knicks got back for Porzingis.
Well, but see, it's the perfect dichotomy of today's NBA. The Knicks realize, you know what? We're in a major market. We're a historic franchise. We can attract a couple superstars if we have the money. Is the thought process, right? Which we've seen the NBA is moving towards, guys colluding and deciding that they want to go to these major franchises. The Mavericks.
The last time the Knicks did this, they got Amari Stoudemire.
I mean, and it worked out all right because they wound up in the playoffs. It was and they had a decent run.
It wasn't their plan. Amari was like number 5 on their list.
No, but I agree. But the Knicks at least are thinking in that mindset, and the Mavericks, on the other hand, look at it and go, we're not going to attract major free agents. That's just not the way it's going to work for us. We have to build through getting controllable assets through trade and draft, where the Suns don't seem to get that this is the way the new NBA works. And James Jones thinks he's going to be able to woo some kind of major free agent to come to Phoenix, despite the fact that we're just seeing that and the reality is Phoenix is not a major market in the NBA. They're a medium to small market in terms of the way that the players are viewing it right now. They're like New Orleans, and they're more likely to lose a guy like Devin Booker by forcing his way out than add a superstar through.
Yeah, this is what bothers me the most about James Jones's take on things right now. Now, what a GM says is not always what a GM does. So we all have to take every word with a grain of salt, because you can say whatever you want and do something completely different. But his general take of the Suns' best chance of adding high-level talent is free agency, because with trades, nobody wants to make you better. And with the draft, it's kind of a crapshoot, and he hasn't hired any scouts to scout college to actually make the draft a positive for them. Although you could argue that Ryan McDonagh, with all of his scouts, didn't make the draft a positive for the Suns. So that's kind of a crapshoot too. But James Jones's comment that free agency is the way to go. The Suns have never been successful in free agency because the same as Dallas. Dallas is a huge market and they have trouble landing free agents. It's not the destination places are not including Phoenix in their top 3. And when you've got the best players in free agency, they don't have to go to their 4th, 5th, 6th options. They get the money they want with their top options.
Can we take a step back? Yes, I am a Ryan McDonagh stan. There's no doubt about it. I defend the guy way more than I probably should. But this idea that Ryan McDonagh was awful in the draft, that seems to be the normal feeling here.
He could have done better, Greg.
Oh, yeah, well, yes, and so could every GM. Go back and look at Sam Hinkie's misses too. The fact is, he hit on 3, he missed on 3 or 4 of those major picks. I mean, if you look at it, T.J. Warren, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. Some will argue DeAndre Ayton is a miss. I'm not in that camp. I mean, I still think he added quality to this roster, but yes, he could have done better.
Well, he hasn't done anything awesome with his top 5 picks.
Well, Ryan McDonagh has he missed on his trades.
He definitely missed on the trades.
Pretty bad. And he definitely didn't hit on any second-round picks, which it's a crapshoot, but he should hit on one at least, which would have made a big difference for this team. Ryan McDonough's plan was great. It was simply poorly executed.
Right. That's the thing. So the plan doesn't, that's what I was saying about James Jones. The plan doesn't actually matter as much as the execution. You have to get lucky. You have to know when to strike. That was I wrote about the same topic you were just talking about, Greg. I wrote about it on Brightside this week, is the Suns not even getting in on the talks. Now, there's 25 other teams who feel the same exact way. What? It already happened? The trade already happened before we had a chance to pick up the phone and put our best offer together? Yeah, that sucks. But the Suns shouldn't have been one of those. The Suns should have been one of the first ones with that relationship to have that talk, to be able to make that trade. Even if James Jones had kept those expiring contracts, even if they were all sitting around grumpy and moaning and all that because the Suns weren't winning enough games to make 1-year free agents happy, he still wouldn't have been that deal still wouldn't have happened because he didn't have the relationship already set up with the Knicks front office to where they'll make the deal with him over somebody else.
And we talked about that last week.
Dave, don't crap in a bowl and tell me it's chocolate ice cream. There's no way that deal came down in 5 minutes. Like it did. Like it did. Online.
Nobody talks to anybody until it's officially okay to talk.
I'm telling you, they had that deal done long before they had that meeting with Kristaps, and they're trying to make it look like he's the bad guy.
That's not legal, man. Come on.
Yes, it is.
Well, they at least had the deal done the night before. You saw Kristaps and Luka Doncic on the court the night before, smiling and talking, and you could tell that they knew something. But
players don't talk to each other until they've been traded to play together?
Well, it just in hindsight, it's like, I'll see you tomorrow, buddy.
Opposing players that meet up at half court and pat each other on the back have been traded for each other?
Well,
everybody's going to be watching Devin Booker in the next few games.
Who's he patting on the back?
I'm not saying every pat on the back, but I am saying that they were awfully friendly and looked like they were really excited to see each other soon. And then they got traded the next day. So, it was
DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic had a long talk at midcourt earlier this season.
Did they pat each other on the back, though?
They smiled collusively, yes.
I've
done that with the timeline guys. There's nothing imminent. I've talked to my agent. So.
I don't talk to the timeline guys.
Am I the only one that just sat there going, look at the Dallas Mavericks making moves and look at the Suns not doing a goddamn thing?
Yeah, you know that gif of the thing poking the stick at something, saying do something.
That's me.
Yeah, that's the last 8 years here. All right, that's do something, please.
Well, no, and then it finally does something, and it craps on the floor.
Yeah, can we talk about? I don't know where you have this in the schedule. Yeah. Can we talk? Tim, I don't know where you have this in the rundown, but I feel like it's probably a good time to talk about Brendan's article from Brightside. Is that all right? Can we?
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, I love you.
Like this segment, though, can we talk about what we're doing? Because I want
go ahead.
So if
You
they
want people to know what's coming. Tim,
Introduce
roll
it,
it.
please. Go ahead.
Okay, so what we're going to do each week, and I hope that the other Suns podcasts find this interesting or funny. We promise that we are not shitting on you personally. We all think you do great work, but we're going to take a take from one of the Suns podcasters every single week, whether that's a written take, a verbal take that they said on the show, or even something that they said on Twitter, and we're going to debate it, probably disagree with it, and we're going to do that. And this week we did pick Brendan Clean from Locked On Suns for a piece that he wrote that we are going to discuss.
I think we should call this the solar vortex. What do you guys think?
Ooh.
So okay, I picked this piece, and Dave, I love you like a brother I never wanted.
Yeah.
From a
brother
mother
has
who was
ever
really
been
mean to
wanted.
me. But this piece on Brightside made me go, oh, okay, really, really, this is where we are.
They don't all have to have the same takes as me.
No, I agree, because that would
What
be
does this have to do with me?
that would be a really shitty site. Well, you're the editor,
Yeah.
so I'm just giving you a hard time right now. You're here, so it's easier to go at you. But the premise of the article was basically James Jones is tanking right, where Ryan McDonagh didn't tank right. And can we please not confuse lack of action for a plan? Because that is not a plan, right? And I don't think this whole, well, he's gonna try to acquire the right assets and not do anything and focus on the draft. He himself, we know he doesn't have draft scouts. He said he doesn't like the draft. He is not trying to rebuild this team through the draft and acquire assets like that and go this way. There is no tank or real plan here right now. Just the premise of that, it sounded like when I used to work for the team and I had to find a way to spin something into a positive.
Well,
right?
let me tell you, Brendan does not spend his time defending the Suns front office.
No.
If you've listened to the Locked On Suns podcast, they are always talking about how they would do things differently. So Brendan's article on Friday, I'm guessing, because I didn't have a chance to read it until this morning or edit it. We have another person who did that. What he's saying is that James isn't making panic trades, and panic trades generally end up with egg on your face because they don't work out for you.
Okay. No, and I'm not saying Brendan is always defending. I'm just saying it just reminded me of the way I used to have to position things when I was paid by the organization.
We
right?
all have days like that, though, man. Every one of us has days like that where we're like, okay, I'm tired of fighting this. This is fine. This is fine. It's that meme with the dog in the burning room.
Oh yeah. Well, and you gotta sometimes turn into the curve, right? I get it. But let's not say he doesn't make panic. What was the deal to send Trevor Ariza to Washington other than a hurried move? Like it wasn't.
No, it wasn't a hurried move. It was a move to get a young asset back that they may or may not want to keep and get rid of a guy who was dragging the team.
It was. Oh yeah, and they've done light years better since he's been got. Look. My point is, if you held him, you may have been able to get a better deal, right?
Held Austin Rivers.
Or if you held on Trevor Ariza.
I don't think you weren't going to get anything better for Trevor Ariza than Kelly Oubre. You just weren't. Yeah. In fact, I'm honestly stunned that they even got Kelly Oubre.
And Austin Rivers. I mean, Austin Rivers would have been a serviceable player. Yeah, I didn't want him on the team because of his attitude. And at the time, attitude mattered to keep this team in one piece. This team was fracturing.
Yeah. The only reason they even got Kelly Oubre is because the Wizards had already decided that they weren't going to extend him. So the amount of young players that are about to hit restricted free agency that the teams aren't going to re-sign is probably really limited. Let's
talk for a minute about those rookie extensions. So, okay, so let's recap back in the 2011 CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, that there was a little known part of it that you cannot, as a young player, going into your second extension, and not your first one, but your second one after the 9 years or whatever, you cannot get a super max unless you're on the same team that signed you to your first max extension. So what this means is Devin Booker, now that he has agreed to a max, or not the same team you played for in your through your entire first max extension. So Devin Booker, if he didn't want to be a Phoenix Sun, could have held out this year, not signed a contract like 90% of the first round last year. Not held out, but just took his fourth year and not extended. Or right now, he could insist on a trade, and if he gets himself traded as a fourth-year player, not quite starting his rookie extension, whatever team he's on is the only team at the end of this year. Whatever team he's on is the only team that can sign him to a super max second extension. So, having said that, there's guys like Kristaps. Kristaps needs to be on the team he wants his super max second extension from if he feels like that is a possibility. A guy who in retrospect, it shouldn't have happened, but a guy who was never eligible for a super max second extension was Isaiah Thomas, because he had been traded during his post rookie first 4 years. There are guys like that, and so very few players are eligible for second extension supermaxes. Kristaps got himself traded before this, so that might mean that you'll see some more trade demands in the coming days from other first round picks from that 2015 draft who haven't signed their extensions yet. They might want to get on the team they want to be on for their careers, and this is the time to get traded, not 2 or 3 years from now.
Well, and Tim, with the Kelly Oubre thing, can we not act like that was some stroke of genius and rewrite history with it? Do we not remember that wasn't the deal they wanted?
No, okay, hold on. I want to quibble with your words.
Better.
I want to quibble with your words.
Okay, go ahead.
There's no reason we don't know that the Suns didn't want Kelly Oubre. We just know that the Wizards weren't offering Kelly Oubre to the Suns because the Wizards wanted draft compensation back for him.
Fair enough. The point is the original deal, as it was reported, was not with Kelly Oubre coming to Phoenix. It was a secondary deal after the fact.
The Wizards were going to slough off the dumb, bad players to the Suns and then get the second round pick or two from the Grizzlies for Oubre.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough. We don't know exactly, but let's not act like if it had been the original deal, I would praise it as stroke of genius, brilliant work. But the way we saw it play out, I can't. I feel like you almost dumbed into it. All right, you dumb lucked into it, which is fine. It worked out great so far, but let's not act like it was some part of a master plan here.
So let's go ahead and thank listener for supporting the show. If you are listening right now, wherever you listen to podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube and you open up the show notes, there's a little button there for supporting the show. And this week's supporter of the show is Trey Johnson. And so shout out to you, Trey Johnson, for supporting. We really do appreciate you. Trey Johnson is an awesome name.
That is. That sounds like a basketball player.
Yeah, or a podcast host. Man, I was born with a shitty name. I wish it was Trey Johnson.
Tim Tompkins is the best podcast host name.
It really is. He does have a good name, and Dave King is a strong name. Greg Esposito sounds like a guy that shouldn't be talking to a mic. It is. Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
So there's 3 options for supporting the show if you wish to do so. One is $1 a month, another one is $5 a month, another one is $10 a month. If you do the $10 option, I will personally send you some Suns swag. I sent 3 listeners out their Suns gear just yesterday, actually. So anyway, if you end up doing it, just let us know. Hit us up on the Twitter or the Facebook. Give us your address, and I will send you something.
There is actually a fourth way, Tim. You can send me major electronics if you'd like. I'll provide my home address. So
hey, while we have it, and while we're on YouTube, do you want to show the fancy thing that you got?
Ooh, the string art of our logo?
Yeah.
Check it out, people.
That thing is awesome. I need one of my own.
All right.
One.
I definitely do.
I will make sure that you guys get connected with that, and we'll get those to you. I thought it was a fun way.
I would pay dollars for that.
Oh, good, because they don't accept non-dollars for that. So, but I thought it was a fun way to kind of honor the show. It's it's been a major part of everything we've done for the last 2 years. What were we, episode 112? I think I've been here for at least 105 of them. So, like
at least 100.
So I you gotta honor the things you spend your free time doing. So I thought it was a fun way to do it.
And when we get back from this break right here, we are going to examine some of the biggest trade targets that the Suns have been linked to as we approach the trade deadline. So if you want to hear that, you're watching on YouTube, just go ahead and...
This is the last solar panel episode before the trade deadline has hit. So next time we record, we'll be bitching and moaning about what actually happened. So this is the last moment of optimism we'll have.
And on that note, we'll be back.